Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to Webinar Wednesday. Today's presentation is What's a Parent to Do? How to Get Your Kids to Eat Right. Today's presenter is Amy Lothian, an internist and pediatrician at Kingwood Clinic. She earned her medical degree at University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. She completed her internship and residency at Baylor College of Medicine in 2005. She's board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics, a member of the American Association of Pediatrics, and has been with Kelsey-Seybold since 2008. I'm going to transfer it over to Dr. Lothian now.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Lothian. So we're going to talk about how to attempt to get your children to eat better. So as everybody knows, I'm sure, America has been at war with obesity for quite some time. The obesity rates in the U.S. have increased by 37% between 1998 and 2006. CDC researchers estimate that obesity now accounts for about 9.1% of all medical spending. Back in 2008, that was about $147 billion. So one of the big problems and what's causing the obesity epidemic is the change in serving size. 20 years ago, a bagel was 3 inches across. When is the last time you saw a bagel that was 3 inches across? A cookie was about 1.5 inches. A serving of fries, a standard serving of fries 20 years ago was the same as what we would call a small today. A serving of pizza was a single slice, and soda was only 6.5 ounces. So what are serving sizes supposed to look like? When you're talking about breads, pasta, cereal, a slice of bread about the size of a CD case is a serving size. A half of today's bagel is a serving size. 1 cup of cereal is a serving size. And grain or pasta, a half a cup, which is about the size of your cupped palm, that's a serving size. What's a serving size of fruit? 1 piece of fruit about the size of a tennis ball, a half a cup of cut up fruit, whether it's raw, frozen, canned. If you're talking dried fruit, it's about 1/4 cup. And fruit juice, a serving size is only 3/4 of a cup. For most of us, that's a lot less than the amount of fruit juice we usually give our children. What about vegetables? If you're talking cut up veggies, again, doesn't matter if they're frozen or cooked, it's about 1/2 cup. If you're talking beans, it's the same thing, approximately 1/2 cup. Leafy greens is a cup. And if you're talking vegetable juice like V8 or similar, again, a serving size is only 3/4 of a cup. Now what about dairy and proteins? Well, you're talking about 3 ounces of food. So 1 egg, 1 ounce of cheese, 1/2 cup of ice cream, 1/2 cup. Milk or yogurt would be 1 cup. Nuts would only be 1/3 of a cup. And if you're talking a nut butter like, say, peanut butter or almond butter, it's about 1 tablespoon. So how do you get your children to engage in portion control? Well, you don't leave them to their own devices. You have to help them with it. When you're serving food, you want to make sure to serve it on individual plates, not big serving dishes, which encourages multiple helpings. You want to put snacks in a bowl or a container that's of a smaller size before you allow your children in front of the TV. Otherwise, if you give them, say, a bag of chips, it encourages continuous snacking. You want to choose smaller plate sizes, particularly for snacks. Again, don't let your kids eat right out of the package. And you want to talk to your kids about the difference between hunger and just having a big appetite. How else can you figure out portion sizes for your children? Well, like all things, there's information on the internet. You can go to choosemyplate.gov and there's a link for daily food plan. If you put in your child's information, weight, age, they can help you with the recommended daily proportions. If you look at this plate here, it gives you an idea of what a meal should look like. If you notice, half the plate is encompassed by fruits and vegetables. Protein is a little less than 1/4, and then grains is the rest. How many of our children actually have a meal that looks like this? This slide is a little bit garbled, but this is supposed to give you an idea that as we get older, as expected, your calorie counts and the requirements do go up. So what is a healthy diet? If your child is 2 to 3 years old, they only require 1,000 to 1,400 calories a day. Obviously, a more active child requires more calories. Their protein intake should only be between 5 and 20% of their total daily intake. So, in other words, a diet full of nothing but chicken nuggets is not a healthy diet. Their carbohydrates should be between 45 and 65%. Their fat intake up to 40%. Sodium should only be 1,000 milligrams per day. That's a lot less sodium than in many packaged foods. And fibers between 14 and 20 grams per day. In 4 to 8-year-olds, of course, the calorie requirement goes up as high as 2,000 calories, depending on how active your child is. You'll notice protein content still rather on the low side, 10 to 30%. The sodium requirement only goes up to 1,200 milligrams per day. It's not much more than for the smaller child. In 9 to 13-year-olds, again, calorie count goes up to 2,600 calories if your child is active. Protein is still at around 30%, so only about a third of their intake. Sodium only gets up to 1.5 grams per day, and fiber should be 21 to 36 per day. When your kids get a little older, 14 to 18, finally, some children need up to 3,200 calories per day, but those are your athletic children who are involved in a lot of physical activity. Carbohydrates can go up to 65% of their meal, but they should only be getting no more than 1.5 grams per day of sodium. So how do you move your kid over to a healthier diet? You want to try to make changes happen one at a time. I wouldn't do any more than one change per week, and try to make the changes small and manageable so your children don't rebel. You want to start by replacing junk foods with healthy foods and try to keep the more tempting things out of sight, or don't buy them to begin with. You want to move the healthier foods to easy access locations. Often children will grab the first thing they see in the refrigerator or the pantry. And if you're buying foods in bulk, you want to store the excess in an inconvenient location so your kids are not tempted to eat everything that they see. For snacks, you want to start with fruits. Change sodas over to things like water or seltzer if they really like fizzy liquids. Exchange chips for nuts. Make sure your cereals are whole grain. When your kids are looking for something sweet like candy, how about trying something like strawberries or blueberries? Change your breads over to whole grain. And you want to gradually convert what's in your pantry and what's in your refrigerator over to healthier choices. You want foods that are healthy but with the same crunch, taste, and texture of the not-so-healthy choices. Don't allow your kids to skip their regular meals because this encourages more snacking. When your kids are asking for more snacks, one thing to do is offer them an alternative activity to do. Maybe spend more time with you instead of more time with snacks. You want to try to make your grocery lists in advance with your children. You also want to avoid turning junk foods into rewards for good behavior. You want to change dessert into a special event, maybe 1 to 2 nights per week at maximum. What do you do with a picky eater? Well, try to serve small portions to the picky eater. So small portions of many different things. Try not to bribe the child or force the child. You don't want to get into a power struggle where they refuse to eat just because they want to refuse what you're asking them to do. You want to keep to a routine. You want to make sure that fruits and vegetables are included with every single meal so they get used to seeing them on the plate. You only want to use milk with meal times, not in between meals. They don't need all those calories. Stick to water or seltzer between meals. And you want to keep re-exposing them to new foods and things that they might initially reject, like the broccoli you saw on the screen. Try to offer the new foods and the healthier choices with foods that your child already likes. It's very helpful, and I found this personally with my son, to offer foods that are cut up or snack size, more comfortable for small fingers to grab. Try to avoid becoming the short order cook in your household. You don't want to cook one thing for the family and then something else for your child. Try to minimize eating distractions, things like having the TV on or allowing electronics at the table like smartphones and iPads, and make sure you're setting this example yourself. Another way to get your kid to eat, especially if they're picky, is to try to be more creative. So, for example, try to top acceptable foods or foods that your child's willing to eat with more desired foods. So, for example, if they don't like cereal, you might put their favorite fruit on top. Try to add desirable foods into sauces. So if you're having a hard time giving your child vegetables, try pureeing them and putting them into pasta sauce. You can do things like grate vegetables into soups or casseroles. Also, and I found this helpful as well, is try to arrange food more attractively, particularly with small children. So for example, if you give them a bowl of strawberries, they might not eat it. But if you slice up the strawberries and arrange them into a smiley face, all of a sudden they're interested in what's on the plate in front of them. You can also cut foods into shapes. I found cookie cutters are great for this. Food coloring, vegetable-based food coloring is another great trick. You can take pretty much any food and add a little bit of food coloring to it, and all of a sudden you make it interesting. A child may find mashed potatoes to be something they don't want to eat, but add a little purple food coloring and all of a sudden they're excited about it. Dips are also very helpful, especially with finger foods. So things like a little bit of barbecue sauce, ketchup, yogurt, honey, or anything else that they want to dip in, that can be a great enticement for kids to eat things they might not otherwise want. Serving snacks in little colorful snack baggies or more colorful containers also make healthy choices more palatable to kids. So what do you do when you're eating out? And this applies whether you're eating in a fancy restaurant or in a fast food place. Try to ask for things like butter, sauces, gravies on the side. If you have a choice between margarine or butter, ask for margarine. Try to take visible fat off of meats. Put your salad dressings on the side. When you have a choice, try to get your meat or your fish item steamed or broiled or poached. Sometimes the restaurant or the eating establishment may not have this listed on the menu, but if you ask, often they can do that for you. Try, if you have to get fried items, to be something that doesn't have batter on it. You want things that are fried in olive oil if possible. Definitely avoid sodas, sugary drinks, shakes. Sometimes it's better to avoid the children's menu, which tends to have the fried chicken nuggets, and share a healthy adult entree with the child instead. What about fast food? There's nothing wrong with using the dollar menu. As a matter of fact, the dollar menu is a great idea because it tends to have smaller portions. If you're going to have a hamburger or your child is going to have a hamburger, choose the one without the cheese and the sauce. And again, you try to be the example, so you should also be ordering the hamburger without the cheese and the sauce. Roast beef is a great alternative to hamburgers. Try to choose alternatives to the French fries. Many fast food places now offer fruit. If you have to get milk, it should be fat-free or low-fat. Many fast food places have salads. Check those out. If there has to be a topping, try to keep it simple. Ketchup, mustard. If you're going to get pizza out, try to stick with the thin crust. Thick crust has a lot more calories. How do you shop with your children? How do you avoid junk food? Well, first of all, in the store, try to avoid the area where the junk food is sold. When you're buying bread products, choose the whole grain versions. Don't give your child the choice of choosing the white bread. Be sure to spend sufficient time in the produce aisle. Look for new things that your child hasn't tried, like mangoes, colored peppers, cranberries. Try to read product labels and encourage your child to get involved with that. Look at things like the calorie, the fat, the sugar content, and particularly the sodium, like we talked about before. Again, with milk, try to stick with fat-free or low-fat milk products. When you're buying snack products, look for low sodium. Look for baked products. If you're going to buy, say, packaged fruit or canned fruit, make sure it's packed in juice, not syrup. You want to make sure to have a good number of herbs and spices at home. That can do a lot to jazz up a meal that your child might find otherwise unappetizing. And of course, when you're buying meats or poultry, fish, make sure that they're lean. So how do you get your child to survive school lunch and still be healthy about it? You want to try, if possible, to look over the school menu in advance. Try to talk to your child about what the better choices are. Find out what snack foods are available at your child's school and try to encourage them to pick the healthier choices. Sometimes it's good to have smaller children literally visualize what kind of meal they're going to choose at school and have them draw a picture of it. You want to encourage them to pick something that's good for the bones, like milk, whole grain, fruits and vegetables, a protein, and some kind of simple drink like low-fat milk or water. You want to talk to them about choosing deli meats, things like chicken and turkey, rather than picking salami or ham. Encourage, again, use of whole grain breads. Recommend that they skip the spreads and try to eat things that don't have spreads on them. If they're going to pick snacks, try to encourage those baked options or low-fat options like popcorn, baked chips, pretzels. Encourage sending snacks to school with their lunchbox so that they're not buying the less healthy choices at school. So what are some things that you can do with lunch if you're going to make it at home? If you're making a sandwich, try to jazz it up a bit. Use pita bread. Try making a wrap. For drinks, again, encourage that water or skim milk. To give some crunchy food, offer things like rice cakes, veggie chips, low-salt pretzels. To appeal to their sweet tooth, try using things like low-fat yogurt, trail mix, applesauce, fruit sauce. For fruits and vegetables, offer sliced up options that look appetizing like apples or carrots or orange slices. You want to involve your child in their food choices. Take them shopping with them. Let them choose new items from the fruit and veggie aisle. Make them choose the daily fruits and vegetables in the meals for the family. Get them involved in food preparation. Have them wash or arrange or stir or measure or mash the potatoes or whatever suits their interests. Really, in the end, what you want is your home to be a haven where the foods that are easily available to your children are the ones that help support good nutrition. You really want healthy eating to be something for the whole family. You want your children to be engaged in healthy eating, but you also want to model that healthy eating and those healthy habits for them. Obviously, out there are a lot of obstacles to good nutrition, fast food, lots of junk food in the store aisles, and really you just have to plug at it and make sure that you keep your children involved in healthy food choices. In the end, it's well worth the effort for your children, and it's well worth the effort for you. Okay, so we're going to leave time now for some questions. So if anybody has some questions, you should be able to, on your screen, click in and type any questions that you may have about what I had to say today. Okay, let's see. So we have a first question. Are tortillas a healthier option than bread itself? The answer to that would be often. There is less carbohydrate content in general in a tortilla. What you have to do is when you buy tortillas, make sure you read the label. So some of them have higher fat content or higher sodium content. So you really need to look at your labels. Of course, homemade tortillas are usually the best. In general, just for a gauge, bread that's higher calorie, you're looking at 100 or upwards calories per slice. Low-calorie bread or grainier wheat bread may go down as far as 40 calories per slice. So if your tortilla is more toward the 40-calorie range, then that's a better option. Another question. How do you feel about giving a small portion of chips in lunch just on Fridays? It's okay to give your child the occasional chip, but what you want to do is you want to be careful about what type of chips. So you want to make sure that it's a baked option or a low sodium option. Be wary of chips that are, have cheese powder and such on them. Those are very high sodium and usually higher fat content. I find that rice cakes are a great option instead of chips, and you can even buy mini rice cakes now that are much healthier than potato chips. Okay, another question. Let's see. So this individual has a child who is lactose intolerant and seems to crave foods with lactose in them. Well, that is a big challenge. If your child likes milk products and they really can't tolerate lactose, I don't know the age of this child, but there are lactase supplements out there that can be used to try to help with lactose digestion. Also, when it comes to just drinking milk, you can buy milk where the lactose has already been digested. I can't go into particular brand names, but those products do exist. And so that can be helpful, particularly if the child wants cereal. They do have milk with the lactose already digested in it. Let's see. Another question. How do you reintroduce things that the child has already expressed a dislike to? For example, broccoli, like the broccoli on my slide. You know, there have been studies out there done particularly on small children about how to get them to eat things that they don't like. And one study I saw, which was looking at infants, but it's the same concept, sometimes you have to introduce a food up to 30 times, that's 30, in order to get them to learn to like the food. And so it just has to do with re-exposure. Now, as I mentioned in my lecture, when you give a picky eater foods, you want to give them small portions of multiple options. And so if you keep reintroducing a small portion of the same thing, that can help. Also, arranging the food in an interesting way, like I expressed, putting it on a more colorful plate, or giving them a colored utensil, or again, even use of food coloring. My 5-year-old son does not like asparagus, but if I put little dots of red food coloring on it and tell him that it's got the chicken pox, all of a sudden he's interested in eating it. Another question, what do you do if you have a family on the go and you don't have time to prepare a healthy meal? That has to do with planning ahead. So as a busy parent, I understand that sometimes you have maybe one day a week, if you're lucky, to kind of prepare for the week. And so you want to have those healthy choices convenient and easy to get to. So for example, when you're talking about vegetable choices, say for lunchtime, if you buy either pre-chopped vegetables or pre-chop them yourselves, you can have them in the baggies or the little containers ready to go, one for every day of the week for each child. That makes those healthy food choices easier. Lots of things already come prepackaged that are healthy, like sliced apples, baby carrots, sliced celery. And honestly, you can find healthy choices in fast food places, in restaurants. You just have to take a little extra time to think ahead of time of what you're going to order. So you can find salad in fast food restaurants. Just don't glop it up with a bunch of salad dressing. Again, restaurants, there's always healthy choices. And most places, if there's fried choices, if you ask them, they can either hold the breading or not fry the item. Let's see. Another question. Which olive oil is good for cooking? The main thing is that when you buy olive oil, you want to make sure it's actually olive oil. Read the label. Sometimes olive oils are mixed with other oils that are not so healthy. The olive oil doesn't necessarily have to say extra virgin for it to be a good olive oil. Just make sure that olive oil is the only thing that the bottle contains. Let's see. Another question. Are cheese sticks acceptable snacks? It depends on the cheese stick. Cheese is not a bad snack for a child, but you want to make sure to keep the portions small and try to make them low fat. So again, without naming particular brands, there are cheese sticks out there that have lower calories. So for example, you want to look for a cheese stick that's more, say, in the 50 calorie per stick range, not the 100 or up calorie per stick range. Also, the cheese sticks that are kind of like peelable, where they peel a little bit off at a time, that encourages more enjoyment from the child from eating that item, but yet they don't feel like they need 5 of them in order to have enjoyed eating that. Another question, let's see. This is somebody with a handicapped child who seems to hold out for eating the snacks and so doesn't like to eat his meals. He'd rather wait for snacks. You know, again, this goes back to trying to, it's almost trick your child, but trick your child in a healthy way into eating healthy. And so when you're offering meals, you want to make those as appetizing as possible. Arrange the food in an interesting way. Put things as toppings on the healthier choices that your child likes that will entice them to eat that healthier food. Make the foods bite-sized. Encourage the use of dips. You may say, well, ketchup, mustard, honey, barbecue sauce, maybe these aren't quite as healthy, but they're just using it as a dip. And if it's encouraging the child to eat the healthier food, the broccoli or the spinach or the cauliflower, then that's okay to have a little bit of dip. And then your child may be more interested in eating those foods. Let's see, another question. How do you feel about chocolate milk? Watch your chocolate milk. Chocolate milk has a lot of calories, and so you have to be careful. There are chocolate milks that come where the milk itself is like 2% or 1% or skim. Those are definitely better options. Another thing you can do is if you're buying pre-made chocolate milk is use that as just like an additive. And so what you do is you pour the glass of milk for your child and then you just add a little bit of the chocolate milk. And usually that's plenty chocolatey and it's much less calories. You're satisfied you didn't give your kid so much chocolate, and the child is satisfied that they still got their chocolate milk. Let's see. Are frozen vegetables okay compared to fresh? This is one of my favorite topics. Frozen vegetables and canned vegetables can be perfectly okay. Sometimes busy families, one of the problems that they run into is that if a parent tries to buy fresh, they find that everything goes bad before they're able to cook it or prepare it. So flash frozen vegetables, particularly if you microwave them or you steam them, can be very healthy choices for your children. Eating canned bit can be okay. You just have to be careful that you read the labels on canned vegetables. Make sure that things are packed in water, that there's not a lot of salt added, or sometimes things have like bacon fat added. You want to make sure to avoid those things. But those frozen vegetables and canned can be perfectly acceptable. Just be careful that there's nothing unhealthy that's been added. Okay, I have time for one more question. And I'm actually going to extend the previous question. Somebody asked about, what about canned fruits? Canned fruit, same thing. And again, frozen fruit. You just have to read the labels. If it's flash frozen fruit and it's not mixed in a bunch of gelatin, that is perfectly acceptable and it's a healthy choice. Canned fruits, if they are packaged in fruit juice, that is fine. But if it is packaged in syrup or heavy syrup, that is not a good choice. The other thing is, once you open the can or the little package of fruit, you can pour off the extra juice or the extra syrup. And honestly, if you have, say, a can of fruit and it's in heavy syrup and you don't want to waste it, there's nothing to stop you from rinsing the fruit off first and then giving it to your child. That's definitely a better option. Okay, I think that's all the time we have for questions. I thank all of you for coming electronically, and we hope to see you at our next webinar.
I want to thank Dr. Lothian for her presentation today and remind everyone that we have another webinar next month. Dr. Peters is going to be presenting on eating healthy in the fast food lane so we can continue the nutrition education. All right, thank you everyone and have a great day.